All right, let's talk about Pokemans, and it's me, Jade, and I'm here with Nick once
Once
again.
again. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Let's
we
talk.
gotta debate them all. Gotta debate them all. Pokemon.
Yep, because the Pokemon community. I don't know if you've noticed, but it is right now in the most chaotic fucking state I've ever freaking seen. This is some like Dark Souls community shit. No, this is Fire Emblem community shit. This is not what I expect from Pokemon.
Not from
But
the
like,
cutesy
yeah,
Pika Pika group of let's catch cute monsters and fight.
yeah,
Let's
it's
rip each other's throats out.
it's completely insane to me, like seeing the community just get so fucking absurd. But like, again, like I've talked to Nick just a second ago, like I was just saying to Nick a second ago, like in a way, and what I've also heard from other people, like in a way, communities like these, like where you see all this crazy shit out of nowhere. It's not that it hasn't been there before. It's not that this is just appearing out of nowhere. It's sort of always been there, just kind of underneath the surface, but you're not able to see it because because it's obscured. But or it's just in some cases, some communities are just really good at hiding their more extreme sides and are not as overtly like insane.
Yeah. And it's like depending on whatever's the topic, some people might not have a lot to complain about. Or it really depends on whatever the issue is that comes up with whatever group we're talking about, or like the vast majority or whatever, like whatever the topic is.
Yep.
And the topic this time around is quite big. It's not like we're talking about even though I would say like the designs for Pokemons is a pretty big deal. That's not what this issue is about, and it's not like it's about even though I've heard a lot of people complaining about the graphics and how the games look, it's been there, but it's not been that big. It's just kind of a little subsided. No, this time it's actually about the whole national dex stuff.
Yeah, the whole national dex thing, and like, are people justified in like throwing this massive hissy fit over the national dex and not including almost 1,000 Pokemon or some shit like that? And
yeah, whatever the actual like exact number is now.
Yeah, and it's just freaking and the kind of shit people are like expecting, right? And I've seen like some really interesting takes on this that I kind of agree with, that like the main crux of how I feel on this is that you can't have everything, right? Like, I'm already impressed. Like when I saw the E3, trailer stuff, when I saw the gameplay footage at E3, I was already impressed that they gave us like some open worldish type space to like roam around in. Not like that, it's not as free flowing, or at least that we've seen yet. Not that we've seen yet, but it doesn't look to be as free flowing, but you have like the option to just run around in a more open space than we've ever had in any Pokemon game. You can interact with Pokemon moving around on, in the open, instead of just, being like tall grass and shit like that.
Yeah, taking elements that they started to add into the Hey You games of like the Pikachu, or sorry, not Hey You, Jesus. I'm thinking Hey You Pikachu. The Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu games that they did recently, where they actually have the Pokemon walking around in the grass, so you can see who you're running into, which kind of gives the world more life. It makes it feel like you're actually like legit finding wild Pokemon walking around, as opposed to just walking in certain sections just because.
Yeah, long gone are the days where you're like in Gen 3 in Hoenn, like you're trying to find a fucking Feebas so you can get a Melodic, but it's such a freaking rare Pokemon, so you're like running around in like one fucking spot where it would normally show up, or like trying to fish in one spot where it would show up continuously for an absurd amount of time because the fucking encounter rate is so freaking low. Like,
Yeah.
long gone are those days, man. Like, I'm
I don't. Yeah,
so
I
happy.
don't personally care if you like that. I never did, so I'm glad that's something like
Yeah,
that
I'm
isn't
glad
around
it's gone
anymore.
too. It's like I want to fucking build my team the way I want. I don't want to have to like fucking run around like not knowing what a fuck I'm gonna get. Yeah. So yeah, you can't have fucking everything. And you
Mhm.
can't have like what they want is they want everything to be fucking perfect, right? And they completely ignore all the good things Game Freak has done for the game, or how on all the interesting things they've added, and just completely ignore they just completely fucking ignore that and throw it out the window and say like, oh, this game is awful because it doesn't have this fucking specific thing. And I'm like, God damn. Like, you know how much you know how much work that is? Again, like I was talking to Nick earlier when we just started talking like probably like 2 hours ago before starting to make this video. I was telling him about my little brother. This is related. Um keep it in mind, right? This is related to what I'm talking about with Pokemon, but I was talking about my little brother and how picky he is, and how like when he wants something, instead of like getting what is actively available, what food is there, and what's actually like, and doing what's actually good for him, right? He demands you either go out of your way to like make stuff for him, or demands you buy things for him, right? And to me, it's like, what annoyed me about it was just the entitlement of demanding people go completely out of their way to do something that may be difficult or may not be like within the best means, when they've already done things, like they've already done other things for you. And to me, I don't and to me, I almost want to say that it's like really freaking childish the way people are reacting about this, where it's just, oh, we demand this thing, you have to give it to us, we don't care, and then just going out of their way to like badmouth Game Freak, and you know and throwing a freaking tantrum online about how Mama Game Freak didn't buy them that one toy they wanted. And I'm not saying Game Freak couldn't have put more polish on the game, but the game isn't out yet, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's just the expectation of, based on just based on some footage we've seen. We haven't even seen the entire game yet. The game hasn't even been released. Based on just some footage we've seen at E3, people are fucking losing their shit and like acting like spoiled children. But yeah,
Yep.
if you want to say anything, Nick, I think I feel like I've been going on for a while.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to let you get your thought out because like I guess my viewpoint on this is I'm trying to take this very like because I look at the situation and I've been kind of hearing response from both like because I look at the situation and I see like there's sides forming here. There's like either people are really upset about this news and are like boycott Game Freak, boycott this game sucks right away because it doesn't have all the Pokemon. Why are you doing this? You're lazy, blah blah blah, all these complaints about it.
Yeah.
And then you have the other side who's just like completely defending Game Freak, completely like, no, Game Freak is completely in the right here. Like, this is justified, like this, fuck you guys. Here's some, be salty and all this shit. It's like this kind of like
Yeah,
divide of two
I've
sides.
noticed that too. Like the us versus them bullshit
Yeah.
that's forming. That's a little bit like ridiculous. Where I'm just like, guys, calm down, right? Like it's just the lack of maturity, and just the outright just us versus them like nonsense that's constantly been forming is a little too much.
Yeah. It's just, it's not, I just feel like it's kind of unnecessary. Well, not, it's kind of, it is unnecessary. And, I think in reality, what really we should just do with the situation is just kind of like see what happens. And I feel like you can't really pick a side with this because I personally see both. Like I can understand where both of these sides are coming from, and that's why for me, I don't really like pick a side. I'm just like, all right, let's just see what happens. But I totally get why someone might be upset about it because it is kind of weird to hear about like essentially Game Freak announcing like, oh yeah, we're not going to be doing we won't have all of the Pokemon. And I think the worst part about it is they're not being very descriptive about it. They're just kind of like,
definitely.
We're going to cut down to the national decks. We're not going to tell you what we're cutting down. And they don't seem to really, they seem to just not like, it's like they don't exactly understand completely the whole situation. It's like it's falling on deaf ears because when the creator guy, I can't remember his name at the moment, he made like a post recently, and he literally just said the exact same thing of what we already knew, which was like, he's like, we've heard what's going on, but we're still going to be like, having the situation be as is. The national decks won't be like, there won't be like every single Pokemon of this generation, and that's all he really said. It's not like he said, this is why, or this is what's going to be there, or like if we're going to have an update that will include more in the future. He didn't say anything. He was just like, yeah, no, we're still doing what we're doing.
Yeah, that's a very I don't want to sound too weird, but I personally think that's a very like Japanese company thing, you could argue, where it's like the lack of transparency and that is like feeding into this. So yeah, that's the side of it where it's like where it's on like Game Freak, where they need to be more transparent and more like direct with like how people are acting. Now, I don't think the behavior is justified from
not at all. I was gonna say I completely understand that aspect of it. Like if you're kind of just annoyed by the fact of like they're not really going into detail, because I remember when I first heard about this, it was like on I think it was on the Nintendo House live stream during E3. They just kind of like passively said it or something weird like that. They're like, we're going to have a majority of the Pokemon, but we don't know if we're going to be able to do National Dex stuff. And it was just like so subtle. It wouldn't really, that kind of could be a big deal. But at the same time, I also like get the other side, like that other aspect too of the idea of like, I mean, I feel like this only really is important to people that actually tend to, every time they play a Pokemon game, they do get every Pokemon. Like how often, do you think a majority of the people play these Pokemon games and want to get every single Pokemon? No,
most people
they don't do that.
Yeah,
I think it's more so the idea that they're just upset with the idea that they are cutting, but it's really not cutting as much of they're just saying like it's, to me it sounds like, from what I can like hopefully assume, is they want to focus on the new Pokemon and then just add some stuff that they've done that they can kind of put in here. But they're just not being really like helpfully descriptive on that. So that's why I'm like, to me, I get where both of those argument sides are, but I feel like you just have to take this gray stance on this and just wait to see what happens. Like I don't feel like the National Dex is really that important to, at least for me, whenever I've played the Pokemon games, I've never had the goal of wanting to catch every single Pokemon.
Me either.
And I think, like, I just like to play the games and just see what happens and, like, see what Pokemon you run into. And this is also a new generation of Pokemon, so I feel like the new Pokemon should be a focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's one of the reasons why I love Gen 5 so much, is why it's, like, one of my favorites. Is because it was all new stuff. It's like this focus on new and this focus on this personal game itself. So if Game Freak decides to do it in that direction with this game, I'd be all for that. And like a lot of things that they've showed with the game, it looks like they are going in new, good direction, in my opinion. It doesn't look like they're doing something stupid. It just seems like they're just going in this direction. And unfortunately, with the way they've kind of just talked about this, it just hasn't given off like exactly what some people would like to hear. Like people, I think when people hear this, with the whole there's not going to be a national dex. They think they're cutting content on purpose, but I don't think there actually are.
Yeah, I
I
think
just
it's just a lack of time and just the amount of like effort they have to put in to do all this thing, do all the
yeah,
get it all the things in there, right? Because they have to redo sprites and stuff for the character. Well, not even like sprites, but like
3D
models for
models
all the.
now.
Yeah, they have to do 3D models and they have to redo them. There's some people who are saying, "Oh, they can just import the models from Sun and Moon," even though they can't. Right?
No, if you actually
Those are
look at
two.
the if you look at the Let's Go Eevee and
Yeah,
Pikachu models, they are like the same sort of like skeletal structures in terms of animation and stuff, but they're completely different looking. They're
yeah,
not
like
like they're
yeah,
shaded differently. They're made to look to fit that game. Like if they just
yeah,
took the 3DS models, they'd look like shit because they're not like
yeah.
to the same
Yeah,
resolution.
I'm pretty sure like the polygon count on like some of the other games is like pretty smaller compared to
Yeah.
like what we have now, since this game is a lot bigger and more detailed. It looks
Hmm.
like.
Exactly. And although I do think it's kind of weird, like one argument I could see with the whole idea of like this is kind of weird is the fact that this is also fucking Pokemon and Game Freak. How much money do they have? I feel like they could if they really did, but at the same time, like I'm not gonna say like like they should overwork themselves or they should like necessarily have to completely do this because it's always been there.
Yeah,
I think it really just depends on what the game is and the direction and all that things. Like, I just don't think there's enough to really say. Like, oh, obviously they're doing
yeah,
this because they want to piss people off. I
just
think it's the
wait till
last thing they want to do.
just wait till the fucking game comes out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Instead, like people are throwing this massive fit. It's like, guys, I understand like Game Freak's not exactly like being the most transparent, but it's like, come on. Like it's you think they honestly want to like piss people off? Yeah.
Yeah, of course not. It's Pokemon. It's like, even though I'm not a big fan of X and Y, I'm not gonna sit here and say that's like a piece of shit game. No, I just think it's just the elements that they put in the game were just poorly designed. I don't think necessarily like the whole game was like shit on purpose. I think it was just because of how the game like what they had to go from that change between being the sprite based 2D to 3D,
Yeah.
and they were trying to add some new elements that they thought would be cool and they are cool on paper but they just don't work in the game, and it's kind of like those elements.
Yeah.
And
Very much like an experimental game was the vibe I got. Um
yeah,
yeah, if
and
you look.
I don't know how Sword and Shield will be in terms of like will it do a similar thing. From what I've seen so far, I don't think it will. I don't think it'll be as bad as that, but like there might as well could be problems. We don't know. It's just we just haven't seen, like, the game isn't out. Like, you just got to really wait until it does, and if that change they did is really impactful, then I think you completely are justified to talk about that and like let that out and let them know.
Gotcha.
And I know
Yeah.
some people out there have said, like, I've heard some people argue that the reason they're not putting all the Pokemon in is they think um they're doing it on purpose in order to like make another edition later on that'll have all of it, like, and this is easily like my least favorite thing about Sun and Moon, because I love Generation 7, but I do think the whole Ultra Sun Ultra Moon move was really dumb, because essentially they're just like slightly changed versions of the original
Oh
that were
yeah.
not like $40 worth like a new version. It felt like DLC. It felt like really slight DLC. Um, and so I get why people can bitch about that. So granted, if you're coming off of that, I could see why you might think that, but I don't think they would. Um,
Yeah.
who knows? If they did, I think people would be completely justified to like complain about that, but they haven't done that yet, so we don't know.
Oh, they think it. Oh man. Like if they like if they do decide like later on, like if they're like working on it and they have like I guess DLC for the characters instead of like making a completely new game, like they just DLC that shit and they're like, okay, we redid the models for these Pokemon. You can get them as DLC and yada yada yada.
Mhm.
I'd be okay with that, but like not for like a completely new game. I think
Yeah,
that's a
no.
little bit like
They shouldn't make like some third Sword and Shield game where they actually do have everything.
you mean gun
Yeah.
Pokemon gun.
Yeah, I would like if they did that, then yes, I think people can, were right to be annoyed by the fact that they didn't do that for these versions, but we don't know if that's going to be the case. We don't know if
Yeah.
that's like what their mindset is.
Yeah, we don't. There's a lot we don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
probably the thing.
that's why I stand by my decision that I don't think it's right to pick any side. I feel like it's kind of ignorant a little bit to be like, oh, like, Game Freak, like, this is like completely shitty of Game Freak to do, or no, Game Freak is completely doing the right thing. I think it's just
We
like,
don't know.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I just think we should just chill the fuck out and just wait and see. Instead, like we have all this insanity again. Reminds me of fucking like the Fire Emblem community. And lo and behold, like if you look at you look up Fire Emblem Three Houses on YouTube, it's all people like, I bet Fire Emblem Three Houses is gonna be the best Fire Emblem game ever. And I'm like, oh, that's so adorable. The Fire Emblem community is finally at peace. Because
finally. Because it's
yeah,
like they're finally hitting that middle ground, I feel like.
they're
It looks like that. I mean, I still need to look up more footage of it, even though I'm going to be playing it later this month. But I assume from what I can guess from their reaction is it looks like a nice middle ground in terms of like they have some of the mechanics that they've had from the newer games recently, but they're actually making it a little bit more classic like.
yeah.
They're not completely sticking to the Awakening, what worked with Awakening mechanics, and just rehashing that shit this time.
Yeah.
So
It definitely seems like a nice middle ground. You've got like the more I want to say you have the more anime style like high school type of thing with like the characters like getting to learn them, that persona-esque element that I've heard like a lot of people say it's like that, or it's like you're getting to know these characters and stuff like that in like an interesting setting. But you also have like the Fire Emblem-y stuff and like the clash between kingdoms and yada yada yada, right? So definitely looks like it's going to be an interesting release, and I'm actually really excited for it.
yeah. So let's just hope that eventually, that can be reached again with Pokemon, but that really just depends on like I feel like with just in general how Pokemon's direction is these days, it's never going to be perfect because Game Freak is definitely going in a direction that's trying to be more like everybody's included, and it's not so much like I wouldn't classify the older Pokemon games as hard, but they were not like super easy. And I wouldn't say the newer games are necessarily
definitely.
super easy, but they're definitely so much more easier than they were in the older days.
Yeah, bro. Man, I remember I remember a story I just wanted to tell. Like when I remember being a kid, right, and having to figure out some of the stuff for Pokemon and how much like it was frustrating, but it was also really fun, man. Like Game Freak at the time didn't like undersell your ability to do things on your own, right? So I remember when I first got like a copy of Pokemon Leaf Green and just hitting all these different roadblocks and having to figure out how to like get past them. I remember I forget what the name of this fucking tunnel is, but it's the
Is it
tunnel.
Rock Tunnel?
Yeah, I think it's Rock Tunnel.
Is it the one where you need Flash for?
Yeah, you need Flash. I remember
Yeah.
the first time I got there, I didn't fucking know how to use. I didn't know that Flash could be used like that because it's not a fucking HM, right? So, like I went in there and I was like, how I can't see anything. So because I didn't know I needed Flash, I just fucking walked around, or was it an HM? I don't fucking remember.
I
But
think
yeah,
it was
like
at that time.
okay, yeah, it was an HM, but I didn't know where to find it, right? So I just
Yeah.
fucking walked around the cave aimlessly, looking for a way to get through it. And eventually, I just kind of got a feel for like where everything was, even though I couldn't see. And I got through the entire fucking cave without Flash, son. And when I was a kid, I was like, yes, I did it. And I was like,
You just
yeah.
made it like 100 times harder for you.
Yeah, I just made it 100 times harder for myself, but still, there are like moments like that I kind of miss from Pokemon. As weird as that sound,
Yeah.
where it's like that level of, oh, you kind of have to do things on your own and figure things out. Like the game doesn't make everything so fucking easy, and that feeling of actual adventure when you go to a place and you're like exploring. And yeah, like
Yeah.
that kind of thing I miss so much from Pokemon. And now
You
we
and
have
everybody else. That's like one of the biggest things I always hear people talk about. Which is funny because it's like I don't really have that much of an issue with the whole little bit more railroading that they do in the newer games.
yeah,
But I mean, I
because
just feel like that's just a different thing for different people.
yeah,
Because
kids
for
are
me, the
dumb.
biggest
Okay.
thing I want though is just more balanced enemy teams. That's what I've always wished for, is making like I want to make sure that people you run into tend to have more Pokemon, and when you fight like some trainers in certain areas, or when you fight gym leaders, that they always have fairly good and balanced teams and not like trash. Which is what I was really happy with the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, because those like trainers on the routes that you'd have to beat all the other trainers to fight them, and they have really good teams. I was glad about that element.
Yeah, I want to see more shit like that in Pokemon too, where it's just where it's like, okay, let's let's actually put up a challenge here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. These kids don't know about that rock tunnel shit.
They don't know about getting lost in Hoenn. What are you doing?
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's basically what we had to say about it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, got the basic idea.
Stop picking sides. Just look at it neutrally as much as you can, please. That's all I can really say.
Yeah, don't flip your shit. Like, wait for the game to actually release.
Yep.
Oh man.
Discussions are good, but arguments are not.
Exactly. So yeah, that's basically it. It's been great. Thanks for listening, and we're off. Later.
Gotta catch them all. Except you can't anymore.
Except you can't. Yeah.